Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television. And Cynthia Are is standing by for the news headlines. Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning, and good morning to you, our wonderful viewer. Here are the headlines. 25 civilians have been killed after vigilante youths clashed with members of the Boko Haram sect in Mainok village of the Konduga local government area of Borno State. The vigilante youths, also known as civilian JTF, who have been assisting the men of the Joint Task Force in arresting suspected Boko Haram members, was said to have been ambushed and killed after youth stormed the village in their patrol vehicles. Vigilante leader Aliko Musa says that his group stormed villages over the weekend to hunt Boko Haram members. And calm is gradually returning to Warri North after decent communal clashes that held sway for days. The state governor even went on tour of the affected communities to ascertain the extent of the cause of the crisis. And former head of state Yakubu Gowon has been reflecting on the current political occurrences in the country, but believes the situation can be changed for the better. General Gowon, who addressed the 11th Synod of the Anglican Diocese of Owo in Ondo State, challenged Christians to speak to God about the worrisome situation in the polity. In his words, quote, "I want to believe that in spite of the gloomy situation made manifest by the escalating security and political challenges in our nation, the Church in Nigeria, given its spiritual and human resources, occupies a strategic position aimed at the remaking of Nigeria." End of quote. He added that it was not too late to reorder the country. And finally, on the foreign scene, a series of car bombs has killed at least 48 people in mostly Shia areas of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, and in other cities around the country. More than 100 people were wounded by the blast in mostly Shia areas of the city. This year has been one of the deadliest since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And although violence has decreased across the country since the peak of the insurgency in 2006 and 2007, bombings are still common. More than 700 people have been killed in July alone. And those are the headlines.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. And now to the global markets. U.S. stocks inched higher in the final minutes of trading on Friday after being down sharply earlier in the day. After being down more than 150 points in the morning, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended the day with a gain of 3 points. That was just enough for the index to end higher for a fifth week. The S&P 500 added 1 point, closing just below its all-time high for the week. However, the S&P ended basically unchanged. The Nasdaq gained 8 points for the day and nearly 1% for the week. After a pullback in line, stocks hit record highs this month as Chairman Ben Bernanke and other Fed officials downplayed concerns about the central bank's $85 billion per month bond buying program. This week, investors sifted through a slew of reports on corporate earnings and rewarded companies that beat expectations. But the tone was cautious on Friday as investors looked ahead to this week's meeting of top Fed officials and the government's monthly jobs report. In Europe, shares opened higher today ahead of central bank meetings in the US, UK and Europe this week. The Bank of England, US Federal Reserve and European Central Bank will all hold rate meetings this week, and on Friday, the closely watched US payrolls numbers are due. The meetings and data could post a choppy week of trade for markets. All the indices were in the green zone, with FTSE 100 trading up 0.67%. France's CAC was up 0.65%, while Germany DAX was up at 62.41 points. In Asia, however, equity markets declined across the board today, with Japanese stocks closing low, falling to a new 4-week low on the back of a stronger currency, while renewed fears of an economic slowdown in China hindered gains. Japan's Nikkei index closed down over 3% at a session low in China. The Shanghai Composite closed at a 1-week low of 34.54 points, while in Hong Kong, the index was last seen trading low at 87.23 points. The bearish tone in Asia was partly due to caution ahead of central bank meeting in the US, Europe, and United Kingdom this week. We will go on another short break, and when we return, I'll be joined by the Group Managing Director, Crystal Blend Group, a human capital development expert, as we'll be looking at the unemployment rate in the country, looking at the causes and the possible solutions. Do stay with us.
Wherever and whatever your banking needs, Guarantee Trust Bank will be there, now and into the future. Because you're at the heart of everything we do. Guarantee Trust Bank, proudly African, truly international.
Welcome back. Now being joined by the Group Managing Director, Crystal Blend Group, a human capital development expert, Michael Adeleo. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Well,
nice to have me again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I'll begin by asking for your assessment of the unemployment situation in Nigeria.
Looking back, the figure that we have now, according to the UN and the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we're having a staggering figure of 23.9%.
Yeah.
That is alarming, obviously. When I actually look into the whole scenario, I try to find out what are the causes and why do we have this high figure in this country. And looking at the way our GDP economic is growing, and to make comparison with the rate of unemployment, it's quite worrying. And I think a lot of issue has to be looked into. And of course, the way to tackle it is what everyone should put hands on deck to actually say how we can actually come out of this. If not, it's a tickling time bomb to explode in quite very soon.
All right. Now, looking at those figures, 23.9%, that was the figure as at 2011. And I kind of wonder if the National Bureau of Statistics is really, up at it in updating these figures. If we could have 23.9% as at 2011. What about the 2012 figure? So does this 23.9% actually represent the unemployment rate in Nigeria as it is now?
2011.
Yeah, we're talking about as at 2011. Now, we are in 2013.
Yeah.
Does this 23.9% actually represent the true picture of unemployment rate in Nigeria?
No, it doesn't.